Hello everybody. Wow, what a rich panel we have today. So, thank you everybody for joining. And I see that more people are joining by the second, so this is great. And we're going to get started very quickly, but I'm just going to say a few things before we start. So, my name is Yair. I am from Pennsylvania, outside in the suburbs in Montgomery County, which is the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you'll see that all of us are from Pennsylvania, from different locations in Pennsylvania. And I have two kids, and I'm very interested in learning more in education about smartphones and screens and schools and children. And recently, I've been, involved and belong to several organizations. And today, we're going to talk about or with the founders of a Pennsylvania very special organization that kind of does their own thing, merges different philosophies or different ways of actions from different organizations, and we'll hear about them. Just about this webinar, it's recorded. If you want, you can see all of us, but we can't see you. So reminder to all of you that if you're interested in writing any of your questions, Lindsay and myself will be monitoring the questions, and we're going to try to get to as many questions as possible throughout the session. So again, it's below. It's not in the chat. It's in the Q&A section. These sessions usually last between 60 minutes, and if there's a lot of interest and a lot of good questions, we're going to push it up to about 75 minutes with a hard stop at 75 minutes for respect of everybody's time. So with that, I think I'm going to start by introducing Lindsay, and she's going to start with the conversation. So Lindsay, thank you for joining us as a moderator with me. And Lindsay also lives not far away from Philadelphia, and she formed a bunch of different groups. By her training, she's a speech-language pathologist, and she specializes in social cognition and speech-language development in Central Bucks County and also in private practice. But she's been doing a lot of work in Eastern Pennsylvania, advocating for delay smartphones for safeguard of children's social skills. She's a mother of three kids, but a lot, and I've spoken with her a bunch, and we also participated in webinars before. She really brings in her profession. The last time that we had a session with two teachers and Lindsay, she shared with us all the experience that she has seen in the last 15 years or so in teaching children and learning, speech pathologies and dealing with them. And she sees how the impact of smartphones and social media, etc., has impacted the children and the parents. So, Lindsay, thank you very much, and take it from here.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm not going to introduce Alex, Kristen, and Kelly. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and just share a little bit about background and then how they got involved and formed PA Unplugged. I know when I was connected with them, I kind of like leveled up. They have been like a wealth of knowledge and really great to connect with. So, Kelly, would you like to start and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became part of PA Unplugged?
Sure, happy to. Thanks, Lindsay. So my name is Kelly Marsh. I am a scientist. I got my PhD in chemistry and have worked in kind of bioanalytical chemistry and drug discovery, cancer discovery for a while. I live outside of Pittsburgh, and I have three kids, 8, 5, and 2. And I really got connected with Kristen, and she'll introduce herself. They started a Mothers Against Media Addiction in Pittsburgh, as well as a local effort, which we called Sewickley Unplugged, just community level stuff. And I would say that my skill set's not with event planning or community organizing, which Kristen is just a stellar at. And so I was trying to think what I could do and how I could contribute. So I kind of asked to kind of do the legislation side of things and just email a few of our representatives and try to get the ball rolling on that side. And fast forward 9 months, and we have a legislation team, a strategy, and we were successful at getting some legislation introduced here in Pennsylvania. So it's been very exciting, and happy to talk more about that with you tonight.
And Kristen, would you like to share next?
Hi everybody. Thanks for joining. So I grew up in Sewickley, the town outside of Pittsburgh, where Kelly and I both live, and moved back in 2021. I have two girls, they're 10 and 7. And my background is in marketing communications. I started my professional career in advertising at Ogilvy and Mather in New York City. So in account management, which is a lot of project management and process management. My most recent professional job was working at a sustainable ag nonprofit in Tarrytown, New York. And really with this work specifically, I would say personally, 10 years ago when my first daughter was born, I intuitively just didn't feel that a screen-based childhood made sense to me. It just didn't feel right. But there wasn't data and research yet. I just had that feeling deep down inside. And really up until probably Jonathan Haidt's book came out, I felt that I was alone. I always tiptoed around the conversation with people. And I think there's so much wonderful information and resources out there now, and now we have the data and we have the research, and more data is coming every week, which is so exciting. But Haidt's book gave us, as parents or caregivers and community members who care about this, it gave us the permission to finally start talking about this with each other and out loud. And I think that's really just what was so exciting about starting this community effort in our town. We thought we would get 10 people at our first meeting, and we had 50. So that's my background on what brought me to this issue.
Great. And Alex.
Yes, hi, thank you. So similar to Kristen and Kelly, I started locally in my community. I live on the other side of the state, also in the Philadelphia suburbs, but in Delaware County, so right outside of Media. And I have two young kids, 4 and 1, but I come at this from an educator's perspective. I'm a former teacher, used to teach 4th and 5th grade. For a period of time, I also hired teachers. So I was really thinking a lot about the teacher retention crisis, which continues to worsen, especially in Pennsylvania. I went to graduate school. I had all these questions about, like why teaching is so challenging and it's so hard to kind of keep teachers in classrooms. And the feedback I was hearing as we're getting closer to like later in the 2018, 2019, 2020, obviously the pandemic happened. These are like really momentous things affecting education. And I became a parent myself, and then Jonathan Haidt's book came out, and it was like everything clicked. I think you'll probably hear that from many parents. And it was all that I was thinking about. And finally, kind of like moving to a community and talking with other people about the research we were engaging with, a neighborhood group chat started up, and someone said, "Should we create a pact?" And it just kind of exploded from there. So that happened, I think, about 15 months ago. Here we are today, from a very small local community effort all the way to PI Unplugged. I think we're really excited to kind of unpack that for you today and how we got here. But it really did just start small with that neighborhood group chat. I somehow, and we'll tell you how, but I somehow got connected with Kristen and Kelly, and we all built this all together, and got connected with amazing people like Yair and Lindsay along the way. So really excited to share more, but thanks again for having us.
Lindsay, you want to take the next question, or you want me to?
I mean, there's so much that I want to ask you guys, because there's so much that I feel like we could talk about. Do you guys want to share any of the changes that you've made in your own communities before we talk about the bigger statewide changes that you have pushed forward? Is there anything, like any wins that you guys want to celebrate? Kristen.
Yeah, I'll start with that. So I think I just want to share this like big picture piece of it. PA Unplugged is a state coalition, and what that really means to us, and that means coalitions mean different things to different people depending on what your initiative and your efforts are about. But for us, it's we connected with Alex over an Instagram comment back in like late April. And that is really where like the west side of PA, we connected with the east side of PA. And it is made up of all local groups. It is Grassroots Just Unplugged. It's M.A.M.A. It's Wait Until 8th, or whatever name a community gave their group. And it is very important to us that local groups are doing exactly what's right for their individual community. And we believe really strongly in that, because especially in Pennsylvania, where we have over 500 school districts, it's important that communities have these local efforts to listen to the people that live in their town or in their school district because everywhere is different and different communities need different things. And that is something that is really important to us. But on that note, though, um, when we have opened up or helped start and launch new groups in the Pittsburgh area, we do ladder up to three different pillars, and those are home, school, and community. Because when we first started having conversations with our local school district, we made it very clear to them, listen, and it was about phone-free schools initially. We're not asking you to have, phone-free school policies if we're not going to do the work in our homes and encourage more people to delay buying their children smartphones. And if we're not going to do more things in our community to create more activities where kids are having screen-free experiences or businesses are welcoming kids in if they need to use a phone in case of an emergency versus walking around with a phone maybe earlier than they need to. So those are the three areas that we always think about whenever we're doing our planning locally, and we encourage other groups to do that. But other than that, it's whatever local communities want to do because you guys know your people best and your school best. Um, so in terms of like some local wins for us, I would say last year we started a community commitment very similar to what Alex did with Delco Unplugged. And it was really just around delaying smartphones and social media. Sewickley itself right now, probably like our school district is Quaker Valley, but we make up other private schools and other classical charter schools. So we we launched that last year, and we also were successful in encouraging our school district to keep the school issued devices. We have one-to-one iPads from kindergarten through 12th grade. And we were successful in asking them starting at the beginning of last year to keep the iPads at the school from K through third grade. Prior to that, kids were still bringing them home by default every single night, even though they didn't need them for anything. And so the school was putting, as we know, an inherently addictive device into the home without anybody really asking for it. Parents were able to ask for the iPad if they wanted it, but this eliminated the iPads on the bus rides to and from school. Some kids spend up to 45 minutes getting to school in our district. And then parents no longer had to deal with it at home. So that was a huge one at the elementary level. And we also just confirmed and made a consistent rule across both elementary buildings that smartphones and smartwatches were completely away for the day, had to be turned off and kept in lockers and backpacks. And at the elementary level, that's pretty easy, but the smartwatches and phones were definitely creeping into the lower grades in the middle of last year. So those were two sort of like big, like low hanging fruit wins that we were able to achieve last year.
Yeah, I think those are two great wins, really great wins. And Kelly, I mean, I know you work a lot with Kristen, but is there anything you want to add?
The only thing I will add, I live in the same district as Kristen, but in addition to the school stuff, I was really proud. We hosted some screenings at our local. We have an independent little movie theater here, and we hosted Chasing Childhood. It was an event or a movie and we made a little event around it. Again, it's just sort of raising awareness, bringing in different people, parents of different age groups, community members. We invited some legislators, just got everyone kind of talking, and we hope to do more of those community events as well. And then, as Kristen said, an important piece of this, you can't just take, and Jonathan Haidt mentions this in this book, you can't just take the device away from these teenagers, and you have to fill it. And so we've been working with the YMCA and other Youth Connect, other organizations here that have spaces, and asking them to kind of ramp up and how we can do that. The third thing, just really quickly, we're a walking community, which is maybe a little bit unique, but we asked some of the businesses in our downtown, our little village area, where a lot of these kids walk through coming from middle school to and fro. They have a sticker in their window that says Sewickley Unplugged, and those businesses said that the kids can come in and use the phone, no questions asked, to call home. And this, we were hoping, kind of like decreased the tendency for the parent to give the device to the child, maybe hold off for a couple more years, because even though they're out roaming about and having independence and chasing childhood, that they still have a way to call home, these are businesses that said it's safe to come in and use the phone. So I just wanted to share those wins, I think, as well.
No, I love that idea. That's great. And Alex, I think you had a win like last summer, early fall. So if you want to share that or anything else that you want to share.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the one that really comes to mind happened at a school level, so school board advocacy. That's really how I got like really integrated in this community really quickly. Um, there was a group of middle school parents actually like trying to figure out the best way to advocate for a different cell phone policy, a more restrictive cell phone policy at our local district. I live in Wallingford Swarthmore School District. And again, it all came out of Jonathan Haidt's book. I was connected with my neighborhood community and then somehow got introduced to, parents with older kids than mine who they were really looking for an education policy person to kind of like help draft memos and kind of integrate research and kind of share basically like a presentation with the school board. And I raised my hand immediately. I was very excited to get involved. And it just like it took off from there. So really before there was Delco Unplugged, there was this really hyper-local effort called Haven Hold the Phone. So this was really focused on our local school district, pretty small. And it was amazing seeing like the community just outpouring of support. We had petitions, we had surveys of multiple kinds. It just felt like all of a sudden the community was really excited about this and really rallying around this issue of really wanting students to kind of like have the freedom to be at school and focus without the distractions of cell phones and social media and just like the drama that they entail. And it all started because a group of teachers really approached a group of parents and said, like, we need your help because it's untenable. I remember that from, my time in the classroom and working with teachers, but just to hear it from their perspective and hear really like how bad things have gotten, it just, I think, created this like huge sense of urgency. So we engaged with the school board. We presented at policy committee meetings. We shared a lot of research. We started talking to superintendents and principals and teachers in other school districts in Pennsylvania and in other states. It was this totally grassroots effort, like a bunch of parents just cold calling people, trying to gather information, and then sharing it back with our district to say, like, see, look, listen, like people are doing this. It's transformative. Please listen. This is what's best for kids. This is what's best for teachers, and we need this now. And while we were pushing for a bell-to-bell phone-free policy for our whole district, we did not achieve that, but we did achieve it through 8th grade. So that we did take that as a pretty big win. We are not stopping there. We are continuing our advocacy, but in 2 weeks, the new policy will officially go into effect when the school year starts. And I know the middle school parents that I work with are just like absolutely thrilled that we had some level of success. So yeah, that was like our big win from the past year. I think we're really looking forward to continuing to engage the community. We have a screenager screening coming up in September. We're really hoping to engage the community. A couple of other events I'm sure we'll discuss, but I know we're going to try to get a Pittsburgh alternative device fair, a Philadelphia alternative device fair we'll talk about maybe a little bit later, but really excited to kind of like keep the excitement and energy up.
Yeah, lots of really cool things. Okay, and so yeah, do you want to take the next question?
I think what I wanted to ask is something kind of more basic to all the three panelists, to Kelly and Alex and Kristen. I've been dealing with, smartphones and children, and I started my journey just a few months ago or 6 months ago or so with Wait Until 8th, because I just heard about that and I joined local parents, and that's how it started. But what I realized is that with time, there are a lot of small or big organizations. Some of them I've joined in the meantime, and in many ways, many of the organizations are similar, but they each have a little bit of a difference and maybe a little bit of a different focus. And I think that part of the problem, from my perspective, is that maybe for us, because we all agree with each other, it's easy, but these are very charged conversations that I have had. Because, what does Wait Until 8th, for example, mean? For some people, they love it, because for them, it means simplicity. Until the end of the 8th grade, the kids are not getting a smartphone. They're not getting a social media. That's all. But it means that they can have screens, they can have tablets, they can have whatever. And, and some organizations, different organizations, really are in screen-free childhood, SFC. So every organization is a little bit different. And what I feel is that sometimes we really have to be cautious because we can offend people if we talk to people with too much passion about the fact that, so this is kind of like a long question, but if we talk to people, we can offend them if a parent already has a child who is whatever, 11 years old and gave already a smartphone 2 years ago, and now their younger kids are giving also a smartphone. And if we go and cell phone is terrible, and the next webinar we're planning with the Danish researchers, it's showing that it's cardiovascular and whatever, speech, and it's basically we are judging a lot of the parents, and they don't like it. Nobody wants it. It's almost like a superiority that we're betting. Oh yeah, we don't give cell phones to our kids, and so I think the question is this. I'll try to synthesize all my question together into a few coherent sentences. I think the question is, what do we, like PA Unplugged, it's a coalition, but what do you believe in? Do you believe in some sort of a pledge not to give our kids a smartphone or social media until 8th grade? Do you believe that kids should not have, any screens after school, maybe not even in school, like Chromebooks, etc.? Like, what is your passion, and what are you trying to achieve as PA Unplugged? And how do you deal also, the second part of the question, is with this non-judgmental environment that we always talk about it, but it's very real.
Thanks. Kristen, do you want to take this?
I feel like Kristen has a really good part. For the first part of the question, you have a really good answer. And
I don't know. I hope I answer what you think
part.
I'm going to answer. So, all right. So I will say this. So PA Unplugged, we are a statewide coalition, and this is on the website. I'm just going to read it. We are working towards a cultural shift around electronic devices and social media and their impact on childhood and adolescence. I say this a lot, the phones are the low-hanging fruit in schools because it's not connected to the curriculum. And now after COVID, given that so many school districts are one-to-one or almost nearly one-to-one, there's no real need to have a personal electronic device for schoolwork. I will caveat that somebody with an IEP, a 504, or a medical need, 100%, you have that, and you have your device for that. If it's written up and you have the medical note, 100%. And if there is, a certain school district that the kids are still using them because they are not one-to-one, but that's a different situation. Most school districts at this point are one-to-one. However, I think that, and you can talk to, as Alex was saying, talk to all your kindergarten teacher friends right now. The issue is happening. The addiction is not just phones. It is happening with devices, and it's happening way before, wait until 8th. It's happening a lot earlier. 40%, Common Sense Media just released a recent survey. 40% of 2-year-olds have their own tablet. That's not a family tablet. That's their own tablet that is theirs, and they are 2. So for us, this is more than just phones. And it doesn't happen overnight, and it's through really thoughtful conversations. I also think it's important to, you have to know who your audience is, and you have to know who you're speaking with and who you're talking to. If I know somebody has 4 teenagers, my conversation with them is going to be very different than for somebody who has a 6-month-old baby or someone who's pregnant. And I think that you have to be sensitive about it and just know who you're speaking with. A lot of times for parents with older kids, the conversation tends to be more about like ways to do a digital detox, ways to wind down your tech use. What are some small behavioral changes that you can make in your home or with your family that have really big impact? And seriously, small changes have huge impact. And to that point, I think I will say this though. In 1964, the Surgeon General came out with their first warning around tobacco products. And it took 30 years until 1994 with the Child Safe Act that tobacco products had to be banned inside federal buildings, public schools that received federal funding. Not outside, but inside. Now, of course, at the state level, states made more strict laws around tobacco products on school grounds. It took 30 years. So we are now in the 70-ish era of that phase. And I think we need to start to shift the conversation though, where we have more research now, we have more data now. I think it's one thing, you can judge people when you don't have anything to back you up. But if you have really strong statistics and you're kind and respectful, because we aren't doing this work just for our own children. We're doing this work because we care about the world our kids are growing up in, and we're doing this work because we care about the world that they're going to be in 20 years.
I
And
also just want to add, and Kelly,
yeah,
of course, I feel like we all have
yeah, I
we all
know.
have our own spins on this question. I think I completely agree with everything Kristen said, and I also want to add that um, I think we are still learning, and we will continue to learn the ways that Silicon Valley has our kids by the throat. I don't think that people totally understand to the extent to which the addictive algorithms and persuasive design have completely taken us all for a ride. I mean, I know personally, I pay for software that locks my own phone down during the day. Otherwise I cannot do my work. So thinking about asking a 12-year-old to impose that level of control over their own technology when I can barely do that as an adult with a fully developed brain, I hope. I just it's such a tall order. And I think the more that we're learning about this technology and really like what the smartest people in the world are doing to keep our kids' attention on their products. Like I really think that as more people learn about what's going on, it starts to really it dawns on you like, oh, I wow, we never really had a shot. We really thought this technology was going to be amazing for our kids and helpful and make them so smart and give them all this access. But it was actually all about getting their eyes on like advertising and I think it's like a pretty insidious, and I think people just are not necessarily aware of it yet. So that's just something I think to think about. The other thing that I would also say is that when we're talking to people, like I think we're all learning about this like in real time. We're navigating this all at the same time. I try to just say the words like this is a no judgment zone because my thoughts about this like 2 years ago were completely different. Like they're constantly evolving every day. And I just feel like all are welcome, like truly, no matter where you're starting from. Like that's like my mantra. Like there is just always, like, as Kristen said, little changes that can be made, little tweaks. As you get more information, you can change your perspective and change your mind. I think like that's critical. Just like having an open mind and considering like, I wonder if there is a way to like think about this differently or do this differently. Um, anyway,
And Alex, really quickly, sorry, Kelly, but Unplugged, I think we don't talk about this that much yet, but I want to share it because it answers your question. To me, Unplugged is sort of like it's a state of mind, it's a state of being, and it means different things for different people. So anybody can uh, tap into our group or to the local group that is, part of the coalition, knowing that you don't need to be like a diehard like none of us are anti-tech because we're using a webinar tonight. So clearly, like our coalition, like we work together all day long on technology, 100%. But we're using it absolutely as a tool. So I think that people can come to us where they are, and it might be with little kids and they want to just start this journey and they don't want to have screens in their home, or like I said earlier, it's okay, I need to do three things differently in my home from the hours of like 5 to midnight. What do I do? So it's really, there's lots of different ways to be unplugged in your family. There's no one right way.
And just to add, I'm going to share this line that we have from one of our colleagues in PA Unplugged. She's a digital wellness coordinator. She has for young children. She's a educator. She said, and I hear this gets to the judgment or the shame. Like, we approach this as like, this isn't your fault. Like these devices, it's impossible to manage these devices because they are inherently designed to be unmanageable. And as Alex mentioned, the messaging was like, if you want to give your kids the best future, if you want to help them learn faster and be smarter, you should have access to these things. So there's no judgment. We don't get in arguments, I've talked to some people like the wait until eighth. They're like, oh, I don't like wait until eighth because I think it should be 11th grade, not eighth grade. And that's ridiculous. And we're not there. We're not married to a certain age or a certain whatever works for your family. I think as Alex and Kristen said, it's just being mindful, thinking about this and really unpacking all of the avalanche of data that is coming down and continues to come down in the research from this, and really just trying to disseminate that and share that as much as possible so that people, I love reading the scientific articles, but perhaps not everyone loves to do that. So it's a way to distill it and share that information to our colleagues, to our friends, to our neighbors in a way that they have access to it. So we don't have to wait 30 years for the legislation and the regulation to come down.
Before Lindsay takes the next question, I just had a comment. You were talking about, I'm a physician myself, and so I'm thinking about all the general surgeons, the smoking in the 1960s, and how long it has taken to permeate and actually make an effect for all of us, like 30 years. It's crazy. I don't think it's going to be the same thing here because it's just the reality. I mean, think about the 1950s. People were slow. There was no social media. There was no WhatsApp groups. Everything is now, the speed is just unbelievable. And in the same way, look, I mean, you've already created this in less than 1 year, the connection between the four of you, and how I remember we don't have to spend time on how you got connected the East Coast to the West, East Pennsylvania to West Pennsylvania, but it's through social media also. So part of the tools, I mean, we deal with technology in order to do what's best for our kids, but I think it's going to happen relatively fast. I mean, when you see Jonathan Haidt's book, and it created an explosion of podcasts and other authors and psychologists. And for example, in a couple of weeks, Alex and myself are going to be hosting Dr. Richard Freed, who is an author who talks a lot about the company's persuasive design. I think Alex mentioned it. Persuasive design is what it is. When before I go to sleep, I'm just going to chill for 5 minutes and look at some reels on my Facebook, and then point. An hour later, I'm like, oh, it's like, and think about what's the chance of our kids to avoid that trap of the casino slot machine. It's all they're working with psychologists to get our kids and us to be in front of the screens as much as possible. So the bottom line,
get your phone out of your bedroom. Tip number one.
But it ain't gonna take. It's not gonna take 30 years. It's gonna be. I think this is permeating much quicker. So I just wanted to make that comment. Lindsay.
Yeah. No, I think it is among parents. And we've talked about this in our Thursday meetings. I feel like getting pediatricians and school district administration to back us up is a little more challenging because that research is not available yet. And so, I mean, I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about your experiences related to that, because that is something I think that we're looking for.
Well, working with the schools initially was obviously where we went to, and our approach, we went at it a little bit different than Alex, and she shared like an amazing history of like her school board advocacy. For our school district, we decided to start with building principals and the head of tech and innovation. And we really just wanted to have like conversations with the school administrators so that it really came from a place of collaboration. Our school board meetings, you go in, you talk for 3 minutes, there's no dialogue. It kind of feels really pointless. And sometimes I think people assume that you're there and you're angry versus just wanting to come from a place of concern. And so we did that. And I think then once we've met and a few other efforts started in the Pittsburgh area with other school districts, it became pretty clear in about 6 months that legislation efforts had to start as well, because the parallel path was really necessary, because the schools, everyone just wants to pass the buck. I think that's the thing. It's like the superintendents, unless they really, really care about it, which we have found there's not enough of them that feel that way. The school boards don't want to do it. And everyone's afraid of the really small percentage of parents that are pushing back, when in what we have found through conversations with districts that have done it, it's minimal, the amount of parents that actually then make a meeting. The principal, the superintendent sits down with them, and within a half an hour, concerns are gone. So we had to go into the legislation space at the same time, because the school district conversations they just became frustrating. It's very slow, and we're seeing that. And I think that's, if I can say like anything to somebody looking to do more of this work in their community or at a state level, it just takes a long time, and you're not going to get big change overnight. It's the small stuff, and you just have to keep chipping away. You can't stay complacent. And that's why it's important to find more than just two or three people if you can, because it's also really draining and exhausting, and it's easy to feel really defeated. Um,
You really got to find your people. And whether it's like
yeah.
trying to host a book club or hosting a movie screening, like The Social Dilemma, which came out on, I think in like 2020 or 2021 on Netflix, I feel like that was a really impactful documentary for me. But I didn't really have anyone, like I felt like I was like obsessed with this. Was like, oh my gosh, like I need to talk about this with someone, but it felt like culture wasn't there yet. It felt like it wasn't in the zeitgeist. But I feel like had that movie been released, like I don't know, last year or the year before, like the reception would have been like wild, and there would have been screenings all the time, and parents would have been talking about it. So I do sometimes think like um, culture needs to catch up a little bit. And I feel like if there are opportunities for you to kind of just create, even if it's like hosting like a at a playground, like, hey, like come bring your kids, let's play. I really want to talk about like technology and screens. Like who else wants to just like Sunday afternoon, like let's all get together, we can chat. If you've read Jonathan Haidt's book, great. If you haven't, think about it, but I really just want to hear what other people think about this. People have been hosting these kind of like get-togethers where they just start coming together and opening the door to conversations. It doesn't have to be this whole like, let's see, event with like a tons of planning. It's just a way to start talking to people in your community because the more that I find, like people are really interested in this and want to talk about this. And it's just creating those opportunities to hear from folks.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question, maybe specifically to Kelly. Um, it's like I'm trying to understand now more specifics about, you have been more involved in legislation, right?
Hmm.
And I'm trying to understand more about what your goal is. Because, for example, if you look, and I'm just going to share this for a second, this is just from literally from a couple of days ago in Texas state, that they have a new rule that starting from September 1st, there is no more in any of the public schools, there is no more cell phones or smartphones or watches. Is this your goal, and how have you achieved, what has been your journey? Because from what I understand, it's now there is beginning of legislation, and you already have local representatives who are working with you. So maybe tell us what your goal is, and how you've achieved it so far.
Sure. So just taking a step back, we have a multi layers of this. We don't just care about phones in schools, but I'll explain why we started there. We are really committed to social media guardrails and online protections for children. So the last time federal legislation was passed on Child Online Protection Act was when like floppy disks were still around. So it's time we need to update those policies. And again, those social media guardrails. The federal bill was the Kids Online Safety Act that got introduced last year. It passed overwhelmingly in the Senate, installed in the House. So, but we are committed to getting that type of legislation passed as well. But why we started with the phone-free schools was a couple of reasons. One, this is a little bit cleaner and a little sort of more direct. It's a rule in a building, and it kind of does that. But despite the fact that it's just in schools, what about when they're home? But if you think about it, schools are supposed to be these pillars of the community. They're supposed to offer best practices on what is safe and what is right for these kids. When you think about the nutrition program and sort of the amount of effort that goes into offering healthy lunches in all of the school buildings, that doesn't, we can't control what people feed their kids at home, but in that school building, they are offered a balanced, healthy meal. And the same thing we're asking for here is that, that's 6 to 7 hours where these kids are free from the danger and distraction that these personal electronic devices pose. So, and it's really, again, just planting that seed and instilling that cultural shift. So we thought that was a first place to start. The second reason is a logistical reason, which is we got connected with a national coalition, and this is we would not be where we are today without this group. So I need everyone to recognize this. So this is the Distraction Free School Policy Project. This is a coalition of Smartphone Free Childhood, the Becca Foundation out of Massachusetts, Fair Play, which is again, these are nonprofits and other parent-led organizations that have been in this space for over a decade, fighting this fight long before I was even thinking about it. And what's incredible about this distraction-free school policy project is they hosted about 6 or 7 months ago, they said, we want other states, people that are excited about this, join. They're having a Wednesday call and you join up, and it's not formal at all. Everyone asks questions like, who do I talk to? How do I do this? What should I say? What do you do when someone says this? And it's really just kind of fostering that and trying to empower local people to get involved with their state legislation. So I did that. And I have learned and met every time I join in, I learn so much. I try to go every Wednesday, but they also empowered us with legislation, a model bill. And they crafted this with policy experts and other people familiar with how to write policy and how to write legislation. But importantly, it incorporated best practices of phone-free school policies. Not all policies created equal, not all phone-free policies the same. So they really adopted those best practices from districts or states that had these policies and it was working well. But importantly, it also avoided pitfalls and language that was unclear and was resulting in unintended consequences. So there are some states that tried to do this, or maybe a school district, and it just failed miserably. So they kind of compiled all of this together and made sure with this model bill. So we were really empowered when we met with these legislators. We walked in and we weren't just complaining. We weren't saying, you have to do something. This is terrible. We said, here's the data. Here's the statistics. Here's the number of other states that have passed legislation on this today. Right now, it's 34 other states have passed legislation to remove phones out of schools. 17 of those, and plus DC, are doing that bell-to-bell legislation, which is that best practice legislation. I'm happy to talk to you more about that. And that's what we want here for Pennsylvania. So we walk in, we hand them the model bill. It literally, all they have to do is type in their name and Pennsylvania, and they can introduce this legislation. So it's really reducing that activation energy and saying, you can solve this problem. The other thing that is incredible with this organization, and because of this organization, is all of these other states are falling. All of these other states are kind of building. When we first started this, it was only maybe a dozen or so, and now we're at 34, 17 with that best practice. So we're much more empowered and aggressive. We say, when I first started this, I wanted Pennsylvania to be a leader in this space, and now we're at risk to being one of the last states to do this. That's embarrassing. We need to do something about it. And honestly, that resonates really well. And like I said, it's really that we're the kind of the conduit from this distraction-free school policy project. So I want to make sure that we give a shout out to them. And then I think that was, so Pennsylvania. So where we are in Pennsylvania. So to date, with this team and myself, we have met with about 16 state representatives. So this is not federal. These are our state senators and our state representatives. We are thrilled that Devlin Robinson, a Pennsylvania senator, agreed with us that it was time for Pennsylvania to have phone-free legislation. And he released a memo a couple weeks ago that he's planning to introduce legislation on that. So that's really important. We're really excited. In addition to that, he has 2 Democrat senators that are co-prime sponsors of this. So like what we're seeing across the nation, this topic has bipartisan support. This is being brought up in red states and blue states. This is being brought up by red senators or blue Democrats, Republican senators or Democrat senators. It's passing Oklahoma in one of the chambers. It actually passed unanimously, which is insane. What legislation is passing unanimously in our political climate in 2025? So there is bipartisan support on this. We've had in some states, Oregon had an executive order from a Democratic governor. We have Virginia was a Republican governor that passed an executive order, and in New York State, the Democrat governor passed it in her budget bill. So again, bipartisan. We have that in Pennsylvania. That was a goal for us. We needed Democrat and Republican sponsors on that. We got that. We're really happy about that. But that's step number 1 of a long process. If you remember from your civics class, There's a lot to make something into a law, but we are thrilled that we are there. And I will end with Yair, like I do agree with you. It's not going to take 30 years as we had with the smoking, but the reason is because parents are talking and parents are asking for this. We've met with, you showed the Texas bill there, through that distraction-free school policy project, and we talk with parents from all over states with various flavors of policy and what's working and what's not. And we spoke with some parents from Texas who got us connected from the prime sponsor on that Texas legislation that you just showed. And she said if it wasn't for the parent group, this would not have happened as quickly and as effectively and as efficiently. So I do think that, you know, as parents, we're not in politics, I'm not a lobbyist, but as parents, us really banding together and making our voices heard and talking to our legislators is how we're going to make this not happen in 30 years. I will also end with the AI moratorium that was in the federal budget bill. That was the only change in the federal budget bill, and they received, Kristen, you can quote, I don't remember how many letters they received from parents asking for that to be removed.
Over like 10,000 people contacted their Congress, their senators and reps at the federal level about that. Nationally, it might even be more, but that definitely was the driving force for that. And I will, and just so this group knows, it's like almost nearly 100% confirmed that Ted Cruz is going to bring this back up again in 2026. So the fight for that is not over. So we're going to have to send those letters again and increase it, double it.
But I hope that answers your question, sort of where we are in Pennsylvania and our kind of journey here. And I would love to talk more about sort of, you know, if anyone's interested on like how we meet with our legislators, what we do, what we say. But I will say that, you know, it's really connecting with those national organizations, and really just, it's a slow process. You meet one representative or one senator, they open the door and they say, you should talk to this person, and you kind of just keep that going.
And I think before Lindsay takes the next question, just one comment. It's not even just I mean, this networking is so important. And in fact, Katie Tellerico, who's on this call, also from Pennsylvania, and myself, we're talking to several experts, professors from Denmark, because Denmark, as an example, is a place that has done a lot of work, and they have different legal initiatives to basically ban minors completely from TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram, etc. So I think we're going to be learning from other parts of the world, not only other parts of the United States. Lindsay.
Okay. There are lots of questions about this legislation. I think people want to hear about this, and it is really exciting. So Jane asks, how can we continue to support your efforts with pushing the legislation? Petitions, more webinars, etc.
Thanks, Jane. Yes, we need help. So just a quick civics lesson for those. I needed this. I'm a scientist. I had no idea how this was. So it is now, the legislation is going to be introduced. We're waiting for that final language in the actual bill. Once we get a bill, it's going to be Senate bill number. They're going to sign it a number. So once we have that, we will have letters. And so I encourage you to kind of join PA Unplugged so that you're connected with us. But we're going to have template letters, and we're going to say, for example, in the Senate, this is going to go to the Senate Education Committee. So there's different committees based off of the topics that, you know, there's Veterans Affairs, there's health, education. This is an education bill, so it's going to go to the Education Committee. So I think there's like 11 senators on that Education Committee. Those are the people that are going to review the bill first. They have to vote. If they don't agree that this bill is worthy or good enough, it dies there. So those are the people that we have to start with first. So we will ask everyone to send it. Ask your cousins, your family, your friends, your coworkers. If they support it, please let these senators know that you do. You don't have to live in their district. They are on the committee. They are reviewing this bill. They are working for the state at this point. And we'll have canned language for you. You can copy and paste that and send it, or you can take that, make it your own voice, add some of your own personal stories if you wish, and send that along. Hopefully,
sorry to interrupt, Kelly. Yeah. Where's all this copy paste material to send our legislators? Where is it going to physically live?
Yep. So we have Kristen and Alex have worked really hard to create a Google shared drive. We put everything on there. It's insanely organized. But if you kind of are linked up with us, we send out communications and emails and text messages to kind of say, hey, don't forget to do this. Here's the link to the Google Doc. Copy and paste the
But
language.
this is also too like with the coalition piece, and I think, that's why we're so thankful we have the mentorship and the just all of the resources from the national organizations, because we're not trying to be an expert in anything. We're not saying like we know this, we're only going to talk about this one issue. Our entire purpose is to connect with as many people as we can that are leading these efforts in Pennsylvania. And so we're sending it to the local groups, and the local group will send it to their people, because the local group, like you have the relationship with the people in your community. They trust you. And so that is why creating the strongest coalition that we can with as many of these like group leaders throughout the state, that is how we're going to disseminate the information, because we don't have funding, we don't have grants, and we're a bunch of parents mostly that work other full-time jobs and just really care about this issue. So it will come out through a local group, and also us too. But our coalition is so new. We are still like building up any type of, like only people follow. We're not at that point yet, but that's why joining together with all of these other groups. So Jane, if you are part of like the Wait Until 8th mainline group with Yair and Lindsay, like they'll be sending out that information. But we don't even have like, so as Kelly said, we don't even have the language of the bill yet. The timeline looks to be that they're going to have the language sometime in the fall, and then we'll really start to put together. And we also are waiting for them to say to us, like, here's what our strategy is, because we don't want to step on toes. Kelly has a million and one fantastic ideas of ways that we could attack this, and we're kind of just like dancing, ready to go. But we also need to be really mindful that this is their job, and these people they have much more experience doing this. So we want to find the best ways that we can work with them.
I do think it's important. You mentioned that petition, and Jane, absolutely. And I will encourage and borderline beg everyone to disseminate. So the Distraction-Free School Policy Project they call it a letter of support. Don't like the word petition, but it's the same thing. It's a letter of support for bell-to-bell legislation. And even though that's a national organization, there is a drop down that you say Pennsylvania, and I'm pretty sure it even says district, but don't quote me on the latter. But what is important is that if it gets to the point where we have to kind of show that there are parents, there are non-lawmakers that care about this, really having that data will be really important. And I encourage you to go to the Distraction-Free School Policy Project for that bell-to-bell legislation. PA Unplugged also has a petition on this, but instead of you kind of doing it in your local community, which is valuable, it's kind of like going into these other databases so that we have, again, larger numbers and can compile them and combine the numbers. But absolutely doing that. I will continue once, hopefully it passes the Senate Education Committee, then it goes to the whole Senate for a vote. At that point, again, we will be sending out letters where you will hopefully be able to email your senator in your district and advocate and say that you want this. And I will just plug here. I know prior to getting into this, I never emailed my legislator. Like I vote, but that's pretty much where my civic response, and maybe I went to like jury panels, but my civic duty was very, very low. But I'm trying to tell everyone that even if you send an email and no one gets back to you, there are staffers, interns usually, in these offices that collate all of these emails that they get. They're like, we have 4 people complaining about the traffic light down on the highway. We have, 25 people angry about the water. And oh, by the way, we have 18 people yelling about phones in schools. And even though they might not get back to you, they tally that. And how I can tell you this is that when this memo went out that Senator Robinson was going to introduce legislation, our network through our group, within 48 hours, we had maybe 4 or 5 legislators or stakeholders in this reach out to us and say, whoever emailed them saying, hey, you wrote to us about phone-free schools. Did you see this? And do you guys support it? What are your thoughts on it? And so we got to reply to them and saying, we do support this. We are behind bell to bell. This is what we want. And, I can't tell how they're going to vote, but that connection and having those, they remembered, they cared, and someone made the connection to it. So I know it sounds silly, like, what is my one email going to do? Please, like, you do have to tell them you care about this. Some of these senators, the one said, no one ever told me about this. I don't think anyone cares about this. Why is this the first time I'm hearing about it? It should not be the first time they're hearing about it. You don't have to send this long, crazy email. You just say, this is ridiculous. Other states are doing this. Pennsylvania needs to do this. I care about it. I'm a parent. I live in your district, and I want this. Those are the kind of things. So it takes 30 seconds to send the email, especially if you just copy and paste our language. And it does play a role. And then the second thing was that petition that I think Yair just posted there. And Kristen, I don't know if you want them. There's one on PA Unplugged as well.
So
yeah, we shared it in the chat.
Thank you.
One comment and then follow-up question from Rachel. So the comment that I wanted to make is, you're talking about the schools and what is the benefit of not having smartphones or cell phones and distractions at schools. And I'll just mention that for those of you who joined us on the last webinar that we had a few weeks ago with the panelists were teachers from elementary and from middle school. And many people responded after the webinar that this was very powerful, but in many ways sad, because, for example, the middle school teacher was describing a situation that, in the recesses, and she has been a teacher for 25 years or more, and the reality now is so different than a decade ago, because, kids should be running outside when you're 10 years old or 12 years old or whatever, and playing with each other, but rather what is happening is that often on recess, the children are just basically stuck on the cell phones and they're looking. And those who don't have a smartphone often just stand and look at the smartphone. So all the kids are physically close together, and yet they couldn't be further away from each other. They are so not present. And that was, very hard and sad to hear. So just a comment about that. Rachel is asking a question, and I'm going to broaden her question. Do you have a list of the state senators and representatives who are on the board versus who are resistant? And yes. I think the broader question before you go on, and this is more technical questions, Kelly and Kristen and Alex, how do people wants to get involved and they want to join PA Unplugged and not just stay in the mainline group or with the Hicken group? How do they, tell me the technicalities of it. You told me about a Google Drive, but is there a Facebook page? Is there a WhatsApp group? What would you suggest to people who want to join you, Kristen, Katie, Alex, Kelly, all of you?
Yes. Well, you can sign. Well, the first thing is definitely go to the website and sign the PA Unplugged commitment. That's the first thing. And then, follow us. We have a page on Facebook. We have a page on LinkedIn. We do have an Instagram page. By following any or all of these things, you will see updates from us when the language is available, when it's time to, fire up your local effort and get going. I think if you're really interested in getting involved, please email us at PennsylvaniaUnplugged@gmail.com. We would love to have you come to our meet every week on Thursdays. Please come and talk to us and share with us what's happening in your community. There's a lot of work to go around. So please, if you're interested, reach out.
And I will just say to Alex, there's the legislation stuff. I am always asking for help. I do this between the hours of 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Usually, I have kids. I'm a mom. I have a job. So this is extra. So any help with the legislation stuff, I'm always eager. And I describe this as even if you can offer, if you have an hour or two, I need even silly things like that list you asked about, Rachel. I am trying to keep track. And so even if someone could just help me keep our databases that we made up to date and keeping all of that organized, sometimes I'm trying to respond to all the emails and I forget to note that we were, connected with people. We're trying to be organized, right? We want this to be systematic and thoughtful. But even if you can help with that, there's other people that you're like, you know what, I am really good at editing. Like all the emails that I'm sending, all the flyers, we're making one pagers, we're trying to disseminate information. If you're really good at Canva, if you're really good at writing, like we could use your help there. And then there's the people that are like so excited about it that you want to actually come to these meetings with us and help strategize. Absolutely. So those are like little, like low lift, medium lift, heavy lift. Absolutely. And then I would say that in addition to legislation, which I am on, Yair mentioned this, we're launching a medical subcommittee that's really working with pediatricians and nurse practitioners to come in and try to change the culture in waiting rooms and trying to get better screening for screens into pediatrician offices.
Well,
There's
and
that.
just any kind of information at all, a sign, a
Anything,
flyer.
anything. The bar is low on the medical side.
Toys back in waiting rooms, books that parents can read with their kids. I mean, all of this stuff is non-existent and has disappeared. So
Yeah. And then we also have we're launching like a school side of things where it's like people that are just like, you know what, I'm happy you're doing the legislation, but not my thing. I care about learning how I talk to my admin. What do I say? What do I do? What are the flyers that I prepare? Kristen and Katie spent a very long time creating a school board packet. It's scannable, it's concrete, it has all the kind of key points for them. And they actually disseminated it to every single school board member in Allegheny County and Beaver County has this in their hands.
And Delaware.
And Delaware County. We're trying to get all the counties. So, if you are like, hey, I will take a list, this is all public information of all the emails in your county, and you can just send these out. That is huge. That's amazing. That's getting this eyeballs in front of these school boards that are undoubtedly thinking about policies for phone-free schools. We want them to have that best practice in front of their eyes prior to the legislation. Hopefully the legislation gets passed so the best practice gets disseminated. But yeah, so anyways, please join. We have low lifts, we have medium lifts, and if you guys want to come to all of our meetings, we would absolutely love that as well.
but I also want to add, like, Alex and Kelly are giving you guys work to do. If you are interested in starting something in your community and you don't know what to do, or you're just a little unsure of how to go about doing that, or you've already started something and you've reached that point where you're feeling a little defeated or drained from it because not enough people are helping you, or you've kind of reached a roadblock and you're not really sure where to turn, let us know and come talk to us. We meet typically on Thursdays at 1 p.m. That might shift to at least maybe some evening ones as well when the school year starts, so we can include more people. If anything, what we would want is we hope that this provides a place to feel inspired and invigorated, and also a place where it's also a great place for accountability. You say you're going to do something, and then the next week you can report back and be like, we had the meeting, or we didn't have the meeting, I'm struggling with this. It's a group of very, very smart people who have definitely kept our efforts going in our local district, and we share challenges and wins. And so if anything, if that's what you're looking for too, please feel free, if you're in Pennsylvania and you want to keep pushing in your community, come join us, because there's lots of information and ideas to share.
And to that point, for example, we brought this up. Alex and her colleagues out on Philly were hosting a device fair, and they spoke to the vendors, they have flyers, and they shared that all with Kristen and I. So it's just a plug and play. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I know it sounds silly, but everyone is so busy that the flyers for any of those movie screenings, we share those amongst ourselves. We share the emails. Every email we send, in that Google Drive, because sometimes just trying to formulate the language takes so long and no one has time. And so we do want to help. We're trying to lower that lower that bar and make it much easier for you to be an advocate. Everyone has a different skill set. Everyone's good or interested in different things. And the goal is, I, by myself, can't advocate at home with parent education in the schools. I can't do legislation. I can't look at the state level and the federal level. It's too much. And all digesting all the data that's coming down. So everyone kind of does a little bit, and we share, and it empowers you, and you find your niche, and we all move forward faster and streamline the efforts.
Yeah, it is so true. It is so true. I feel like with the legislation, the way you guys explained it to me helped me figure out what steps to take locally. It also helped me connect, with people locally. So Alex and I are planning an alternative device fair together, which is an idea we got from one of the calls. So it's just I feel like every time I join a call, I leave with something more than I had before I joined the call. So it's time well spent. I have a question from Rachel, and she asked, "How does your school in Western PA ensure that kids keep smartwatches and phones away in elementary when there are no lockers for safekeeping?"
They, I think for us specifically, they do have the lockers. I think a lot of kids just end up keeping them in their backpacks, but the backpacks are either in our school, the kids through fifth grade don't carry their backpacks. And I know in other elementary schools they might still have like a cubby situation or like a coat closet situation. The backpacks aren't in the classroom, so that's where the kids keep them. But I think even if backpacks were in classrooms, again, the percentage of kids bringing them in K through 5 is pretty, especially phones, it's slim. But this is something that we haven't talked about yet, and I will say it's not a big point to make, but any policy or any handbook rule around devices, personal electronic devices in a school, it is as successful as the building leader wants it to be. If they really believe in it and they're going to get if their staff feels supported in enforcing it, and they know that their building leader is there with them every step of the way to come get the device if there's a problem, what is the enforcement policy in general? Is it warnings throughout the day, or is it, okay, we're serious, we're going to come take it. It goes to the office and your parent comes and picks it up the first time. The stronger enforcement is actually just leads to better results. So a strong building lead and strong enforcement from the get-go.
And
But so
communication,
that's,
yeah, clear communication to the parents. Hmm.
yeah. So the teachers have to feel like the building lead is behind them on it.
And just to add, any policy definitely needs to include smartwatches. I think sometimes people have this question about whether, oh, well, like, do smartwatches count? Yes, 100%. When you're advocating for this, like if your school does not yet have this policy, or if it's kind of like an unwritten rule, definitely push them to include it and include, like all personal electronic devices because watches are becoming more and more of an issue, especially in the younger grades.
And AI goggles are coming. So
I think there are two more questions here. If you think we have time, I will see how long it takes. The first one is, have you attempted to make changes in your school's policies on play, recess, and outdoor time in addition to screen policies?
We spent so much time talking about this today in our coalition call. We had it today instead of tomorrow. Yes, we've tried. Some schools have been successful. Colonial School District has been successful in that. And uh, we at Quaker Valley are not yet. We're still pushing at it. And I think when I said earlier at the beginning of this conversation, you cannot give up, and it's a slow burn. We've been talking about indoor recess now for over a year, and we will continue to talk about it. So I think it's now the elementary principals realize, like, okay, devices at indoor recess and in downtime or before school dismissal, that is displacing time, minimal amount of time too, where kids can be just interacting and working on emotional and soft skills. We know we have studies that that's better for kids. And so it's continuing to go back. And if it doesn't work with the first conversation, then it's like we have to get more parents to write emails. We have to get potentially a petition. The school district out on the east side of the state, they did get a petition, and that is what moved the needle for them. We also then, it's finding schools that are doing it and actually have it written in handbooks or policies and showing your school, well, the neighboring school's doing it. Oh, really? They really want to know what the other schools are doing. They don't, that is a big thing for certain school districts, especially like some compete more than others. And so if they know that a comparable school district has a specific rule, that definitely piques their interest.
And I think that's another plug for PA Unplugged is that we try to combine all of those schools that are being leaders and are having good policies. And as Kristen said, just like on the legislation, no one wants to be the last, but no one really wants to be the first. We compile all of those so that people have those written policies in the school district and the admins and administration's contact information so that when you go to your district, you say, here are the number of states that are doing this and you can talk to any of these people. So again, bringing all of that data together in a central location so that it empowers you to go when you meet with your district.
Oh, we have 5 more minutes until the end for the hard stuff, and for this session. And to be honest, we can talk for hours, and we have talked for hours. But just before Lindsay asked the last question, I wanted to make a personal comment that I really, several of you mentioned this, and I do really believe that being part of this community is so important because again, I'm a new in this, just less than a year or so. I started, sending emails in my school and trying to reach out to people about the wait until eighth, and often I felt lonely and disappointed because when I tried to, and again, there's no judgment there, but it's just a very slow process to engage with people, to bring more people to the WhatsApp group, or to have more conversations, or and I think that for me personally, reaching out and connecting with people like Lindsay and Alex and Kelly and Kristen, and just hearing them, and it makes me feel that I'm not crazy, that this is like a true, I really believe, I don't, it's almost an existential threat for our children, for their childhood, for other parents in our community. And I think that for me personally, reaching out and being part of this community has been unbelievable. Really, I feel privileged and honored to be working with these amazing leaders. I mean it. So Lindsay, let's take one more question.
Okay, there's a question about private schools here. So I hear so much about the public schools. What tools do parents of private school children have? So have you guys connected with any children in private schools in your area? Or any parents, I should say.
It's really interesting, actually, because when I hear from parents, typically they say like, it's so frustrating because I feel like private schools are really ahead of us on this. And that's definitely the case here in our area. You look at the private schools and Catholic schools, and most of them, at least that I've discovered, are bell-to-bell, phone-free schools and have been for at least 1 or 2 years already. And that is because they kind of have more latitude to kind of make the policy decision. The school leader can kind of decide that unilaterally. And, just as a function of being a private school and not having a governing school board. So that is kind of an interesting question. I would say, though, if that policy is not in place in your private school and it's something that you want, I would say you have the same tools at your disposal. Getting your people together, collecting your information, collecting your support, and presenting your case and asking, like, this is what we want. Look at the other schools that are doing this. Look at the states that are doing this on a statewide level. It's time. Asking them to get in touch with their colleagues at other schools who have already made this policy change. That can be really impactful by saying, here's a list of folks who have already have this policy. Why don't we have it here? And just kind of opening up that question.
And we have that list. We're maintaining that list for you. So, and then I will also just say that's why we care so much about the legislation, because this is going to be ultimately an equity issue. And we want this for every child in the Commonwealth, not just those at private schools.
And at the end of the day, the data is the data. Like we always come back to that, right? And it's these kids, whether you go to a public school or a private school or a classical, whatever school, these are all the same kids, and they all still have developing brains, and we want them to be the best prepared for whatever future they decide to move into. And so we have the data now, and so it's like you have to present it, and the pathway I think is very similar. So you have all the tools. Go for it.
It's 9:45 here Eastern time, 5:45 in the Western coast, and I just wanted to thank everybody. It's been a fascinating. We know that we can talk for hours about this. It's very clear the passion in your eyes and in your words. And I just wanted to thank everybody for what you're doing. Lindsay, thank you for doing what you're doing and for helping moderating. Kristen, Alex, Kelly, you're all amazing, and thank you everybody for joining us. And just one last thing is that stay tuned, because in a couple of weeks, the first week of September, our next Zoom webinar is going to be with Richard Fried, who's a psychologist and author, and many of you have read his book Better Than Real Life, and he's talking about the playgrounds and what kids, how he sees really the childhood. But he also talks about persuasive design in Silicon Valley and the science that they have used to basically attract kids to be attached more and more to their screens. So this will be a very, very interesting, and Alex and I will co-moderate it. And thank you again for everybody for joining. Any last comments? Anybody?
Richard Fried also wrote Wired Child, which is a book that I feel like a lot of people are familiar with as well. So he's a well-known author. I'm excited for this webinar.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you,
Everybody.
AR and Lindsay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for
Thanks,
having
everyone.
us. Thanks everyone
Bye.
for joining.
Bye. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.